Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. And someone will say his career can never be saved. Despite all his rage, he's still just Nicolas Cage. Hey guys, welcome to another installment of Just Nicolas Cage, where I very slowly work my way through Nicolas Cage's filmography. Today I'm talking about the 1995 movie Kiss of Death. In Kiss of Death, David Caruso plays an ex-criminal that's trying to go straight, but his cousin ropes him into a job transporting stolen cars. He gets busted and eventually he starts acting as an informant for the district attorney. And his big assignment is to help them take down a crazy criminal played by Nicolas Cage. So this movie is a remake of a movie from 1947, and I watched that movie for a little bit of extra credit work. In terms of differences, the remake changed all the names. It added a few more side characters, and fleshed out some more characters and added some twists and turns. But the basic story of the 1947 movie is essentially the same as this one. In both stories, you've got an ex-con that's trying to go straight as a family man, but he gets caught doing a crime, gets sentenced to jail, doesn't want to snitch at first, but something happens that makes him change his mind, and then the DA gets him to befriend and rat out a psychopath. It's an interesting, if not kinda cliche, noir story. Although, in defense of the original, a criminal with a heart of gold trying to go straight was probably a relatively fresh concept back in 1947, for all I know. And in fact, the 1940s-ness of that original movie added a lot of charm for me. I like the way this guy says hoodlum.
Because you've got that good old hoodlum complex.
Whereas the 1990s remake has a lot of 90s-ish dialogue that isn't very charming.
Big Junior. That's one of those expressions like jumbo shrimp.
Like I said, the 90s one added a couple more twists to the story. They're really not particularly necessary, but because I watched the 1940s one and then right after I watched the remake, it was kind of nice that the remake wasn't completely beat for beat the same. By far the best part of the 1947 Kiss of Death is Richard Widmark as the villain. This guy is crazy. He kind of reminds me of like an old-timey version of Willem Dafoe mixed with the Joker.
You know what I do to squealers?
I like that he calls everybody Squirt, although for half of the movie I thought he was saying Squid.
Larry Young. He used to own a big cafe joint, didn't he?
A squid.
This is apparently Richard Widmark's first ever movie, and he knocks it out the park. And he was even nominated for Best Supporting Actor for the role. And in case you haven't figured out that he's an evil son of a bitch, he pushes a wheelchair-bound woman down the stairs. What a psychopath. This guy rules. But anyway, we're not here to talk about a movie that came out 17 years before Nicolas Cage was even born. We're here to talk about the 1995 movie with David Caruso. I read a few reviews that were written around the time this movie came out. That made a whole big thing about how David Caruso left the TV show NYPD Blue, and this was his big attempt to establish himself as a leading man in movies. But to me, he'll forever be that guy who says the one-liners in CSI Miami.
Divorce sucks, Frank. It's a killer.
But for a role that's meant to jumpstart his movie career, he does not give a great performance. For the most part, he's just so lifeless and boring in scenes. And then other parts, he's just trying too hard to be cool.
You want to dance with me? Because I love to dance.
He's not terrible. He was up for a Razzie, and I don't think he's that bad. But as the lead, he's not bringing much to the table here. I also don't think that his mediocre performance here was the only reason that his movie career didn't take off. Because the fact that he's completely overshadowed by my boy Nicolas Cage does not help either. Nicolas Cage is fantastic here. He's rocking a goatee and he wears a white on white on white ensemble the whole movie. He's in great shape too. Look at him throw that guy at a truck. By the way, I watched the interview when Nicolas Cage said that that guy really got injured. The guy was bleeding and unconscious and got rushed to the hospital, so that's pretty crazy. He also bench presses a woman, which is awesome, and he processes his father's death by jumping up and down angstily in a strip club called Baby Cakes, which is also awesome. I love that they gave him so many character quirks, too. He has asthma, he loves acronyms.
BAD. Balls, attitude, direction.
And he hates the taste of metal in his mouth.
Silverware makes me gag. I gotta use plastic forks and spoons all the time.
Usually in a movie, you kinda only need one of those quirks, but I assume some of those were Nicolas Cage's idea. He's funny and he's legit menacing, and he even nails an emotional monologue. It's a great performance. Although, if I'm comparing him to his counterpart in the original, I gotta give it to Richard Widmark. As good as Nicolas Cage is, wheelchair down the stairs, how do you top that? As for the rest of the cast, Michael Rappaport plays David Caruso's asshole loser cousin. He's annoying and hateable, but I guess he kind of serves the story. Without giving too much away, Michael Rappaport's counterpart in the 1940s version does something off-screen to the protagonist's wife. And in the original, yeah, it's kind of ambiguous. But here you actually see what happens with that character and the wife, and the character has a lot more screen time. I do appreciate that for the remake they tried to flesh things out a little bit, but the ambiguity of that part in the original I think was a lot more effective. There's plenty other big names. Sam Jackson is pretty intense here, although it's a shame Nicolas Cage and him barely share any scenes. Would have been a nice Amos and Andrew reunion. Stanley Tucci is having fun here, and Ving Rhames has a couple of good moments too. But the three of them are kinda underused considering how good actors they are. And that's about all I have to say about Kiss of Death. Overall, it's a corny 90s thriller with bad dialogue and a bland lead actor that would mostly be unremarkable and forgettable if not for an insanely entertaining villainous performance from Nicolas Cage. It's kind of funny that both Kisses of Deaths were carried by the villain. But ultimately, I'm glad I watched both movies, mainly because of Richard Widmark and Nicolas Cage. So the next Nicolas Cage movie is a big one. It's Leaving Las Vegas, where he won Best Actor. I've seen it before and I remember liking it, but I also remember it being very emotionally taxing. So until next time guys, thanks for watching.